Sebastian Vettel has won 4 World Drivers' Championships, 53 wins and 57 pole positions. And he's done all of that using a pretty unique driving style. But he's consistently changed and adapted to the cars that he's driven, through Torro Rosso, Red Bull, Ferrari and now Aston Martin. So let me break down what makes him so fast and how he's had to change for each car, because he's a master of driving incredibly intelligently. Speaking of intelligence, we need to thank our sponsor, Brilliant. They are the best place to learn science, technology, engineering and maths online, breaking down complex things into short courses that teaches you with interactive puzzles, enabling you to learn at your own pace. Now, I'm sure you lot are always looking to learn more about F1. Well, Brilliant has loads of courses that apply. Anything from classical mechanics, which covers friction, angular motion and collisions, to calculus, meaning you could calculate how aerodynamic load increases with speed. You can really start from the fundamentals and work up. The sky is the limit. I'd recommend the classical mechanics course, as it uses cars, Formula 1 and bikes as examples. You can work through the basics of kinematics and energy, learning through doing. And if you're anything like me, that is the very best way to learn. To get started for free, visit brilliant.org/driver61 or click on the link in the description. And the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and now back to what made Sebastian Vettel so fast. So I've analysed loads of drivers on this channel, but Vettel is most similar to Schumacher in the way he gets a car through a corner. To understand this, let me show you an example. First is a geometric racing line. It's basically the shallowest arc you can take through a corner. Now, this seems like it would be the fastest way around a track, but it's not. When you factor in that a car also needs to slow down and speed up through a corner, you end up with a different racing line. This line is not a perfect arc, but rather what drivers call more squared. This means breaking deep into the corner, making the car turn sharper, and then straightening the car quite quickly on the exit. And of course, there are various different amounts that you can square a corner off. Now, tyres have a finite amount of grip that can be used for braking, turning and accelerating, or a blend of these things. With a more squared line, the idea is that it allows you to brake later as you're using more of the tyre for slowing down. Then you turn the car more sharply in the middle of the corner and then straighten the car and use all of the grip for accelerating and not too much turning. Now, these are exaggerated examples, but to give you some context, Hamilton, Alonso and Leclerc take a more geometric curved line. As the line is more shallow, the drivers need less steering angle, so the minimum speed through the corner is higher. However, these drivers end up steering for longer through the corner, which means they're slower to get to full throttle. So you can kind of see the compromise here. And if you go back to Vettel's Red Bull days, he had perhaps the most extreme squared off racing line of the lot. He would push the brakes very late into the corner, sometimes so late that it kind of looked like he missed the apex. Then he would pivot the car quite quickly in the middle of the corner and slingshot his car out of the corner, getting on the throttle while many other drivers were still turning hard in the corner. So why does this work? Well, this style does work very well, and you could try it yourself when driving, karting or in a simulator. But as always, when driving on track, the challenge is making sure you're making the right sacrifices. Vettel knew exactly how much extra speed to carry into the corner to make up for the lower mid-corner speed. And so when this is done right, you can gain lots of time on the exit and all the way down the following straight. The rotation in the middle of the corner does come with its own difficulties. First of all, you need a car that is quite stable at the rear on the entry to the corner, or rather one that's quite predictable. The driver needs to be able to understand how the rear of the car is going to react when they turn the car into the corner. If it's not predictable, the driver would likely make a mistake. Then you need a car that will rotate well in the middle of the corner. If you have a car that even has a little bit of understeer, you just won't be able to make this work. Although this driving style is difficult, it does work extremely well, but you do need a car that complements it. And that's one of the skills of the drivers to be successful over a long period, the ability to be able to adapt to the style of their car. And Vettel did this really well. But to be completely clear, he did have the best car for those 4 seasons. Having said that, lots of drivers have had theoretically the best car, but not one. During this period, it was all right place, right time for Vettel. He had his driving style at a time where Red Bull were able to give him a great car and come up with some more tricks that really helped Seb. Remember, this was the era of Red Bull where they went through the double diffuser and the blown diffuser. Blown diffuser particularly added to Vettel's toolbox. It used exhaust gases to energize the aerodynamics of the floor, giving the car more rear downforce whenever it was on throttle. So Vettel adapted his driving style again. He pushed this square racing line even further, driving the car in harder, rotating it and getting on the throttle before other drivers could. But at the beginning, to make this all work, he was trailing the throttle, staying on the throttle just 10 or 20%, keeping the exhaust blowing through the diffuser and giving him downforce throughout the corner, keeping that rear in check. Then when accelerating out of the corner, the exhaust picks up even more and allows him to get great traction on exit. Now interestingly, it was known that Webber actually gained on Vettel through the fast corners, but often most lap time is made up in the slower corners, and that's where Vettel really excelled. So Seb had the pace for those 4 years. Admittedly, some were close calls for the championship, but any fan that was watching back then will remember Vettel getting pole almost every week, pulling out away from the pack in the first few laps, and then basically disappearing. It's fair to say he was rapid. Then he moved to Ferrari, and that car was not made to do any of this. To make it worse, it was an era when rear downforce was limited by the rules, and Seb actually struggled here. He had to really adapt his style, as the rear of the car was very nervous on the entry to the corner and just wouldn't live with what the previous Red Bull could. It also explains the number of times that Seb had a horrible lazy spin on the way into a corner. Since then, at Aston, Vettel's driving style has had to adapt. He's dialed back his old driving style, making it much more like Hamilton or Alonso to suit the new era of Formula 1 cars. You should check out this video on how Perez's driving style enables him to save tyres so well. Click on this video if you want to drive an F1 car for real, for free, and I will catch you in the next one.